Hi, this is John Willoughby with Section 5 of our Getting Started with Kendo UI and jQuery series. In our last segment, we added the grid to our app, and this time we're going to add the chart. In several ways, the chart is actually a good deal more complicated than the grid, as we'll see in a minute. So let's dive right in. We're going to create the chart component, configure its options, and set its data source. Let's take this step by step so we can see what's happening here. The first step is to update the HTML. We'll need to add a new element to the right pane of the splitter for the chart. We'll also add an element to display the trading pair name. Next, we need to initialize a chart component and configure its options. Initially, an empty chart will be displayed because we haven't given it any data yet. So let's see what we have now. Control-Enter to run, and OK. When we hover our mouse over the line, we want to display the value in a tooltip. The legend will also be placed beneath the chart. And we want to specify that this particular chart is a line chart and also remove the markers that are normally shown. So we'll set the tooltip equal true, set position for the legend, and set the markers visible flag to false, which is an attribute of the data series for price. The data source is not set yet because we need to set it dynamically. There will only be one chart, but we'll set its data source each time a new trading pair is selected from the grid and each time the hours are selected from the button group or date and time picker. Remember back in Section 3 when we created the function to get the data for the chart? Let's take a look at that again. We have a function called getChartDataSource that accepts the string trading pair and integer hours as parameters and returns a data source object. We're going to add a global variable trading pair here to use. We'll also keep track of the current trading pair. Next, we'll work on creating the event handler for the grid to set the chart's data source when an item is selected. We want to get the label of the data item so it can be appended to the request URL. Originally, we didn't include the label field in the grid's data source, so we'll have to add it now. Inside the getDataSource function, we'll add this field to the schema. Now we'll add the navigate event to the grid's configuration, which we defined in the getGridOptions function. For the navigate event listener to work, we must also add the option navigatable true to the grid. When a user navigates to an item in the grid, we'll identify which row they've selected, and we'll convert that row into a data item and save the label attribute. Then we'll set the text for the HTML to display the label and select the button that represents 24 hours, which will be our default. Last, we'll set the chart's data source. Setting the data source will be contained inside the updateChart function. This function will accept a trading pair and hours as parameters. Here's the updated getGridOptions function and the updateChart function. Let's give it a try. Yay, it works! The next thing we need to do is connect the buttons that let you select the time period. In this step, we'll add the select event to the button group. The select event handler will be responsible for converting the button selection to hours and setting the data source of the chart. The final feature is allowing the user to manually select the time from a date and time picker. The calendar of the date picker should not allow the user to select any dates in the future, and to achieve this, we'll add the Disable Dates option. We'll also initialize the value of the picker to the current date and time. In the change event handler, we'll subtract the current time from the time that was selected and convert it into hours. And lastly, we'll set the data source for the chart with the hours. So at this point, our app is functionally complete, but we still have one more step, and in the next and final episode, we're going to add a custom theme to our dashboard. See you in the next section.